Now, for the woman of the hour, Miss Sandra Younger. Sandra Millers Younger lost her home, 12 neighbors, and nearly her own life in a catastrophic California wildfire. Her best-selling book about the disaster, The Fire Outside My Window, is praised by Amazon reviewers and studied by top-level emergency professionals. After the fire, Sandra discovered that personal resilience is both a natural strength and a skill set we can build like a muscle. Combining her own recovery experience with leading academic research, she developed the ComeBACK formula, a 5-step system of powerful, common-sense practices proven to transform disaster into opportunity and loss into legacy. Sandra now shares her resilience-boosting message as an international speaker, workshop leader, and media guest. She's appeared on ABC, CBS, PBS, CBC, Fox, and the CW, and was twice featured in NBC Dateline specials. Sandra is about to come on and rock it. And Sandra, are you ready to have a lot of fun? Definitely.
I am so ready, Chris. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Awesome. You are now live on Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self. Thank you so much for coming on today to join me and to give a ton of wisdom and share your journey, share your story with our audience and our listeners out there right now. So thank you so much.
Thank you. My privilege to be here.
Yes, we're going to have a lot of fun. So we like to start off with the theme of the day, which is today. Every day is birthday, because my birthday is tomorrow, and I wanted to create a theme. Yes, it is.
Well, you know what? Today would have been my mother's 98th birthday.
Wow. Holy moly.
So I'm in the birthday mood.
Awesome. Yeah. Yes, good. We're right in alignment then. So the reason why I said it is because I feel that people don't have to wait every year to celebrate and appreciate their life. And I want to hear what your take is on that statement, on that declaration that every day is birthday, and whether or not you agree with it or how it shows up in your life. I'd love to hear that. We would love to hear that, Sandra.
Well, I love that concept, Chris, because every day we get the amazing opportunity to start over, no matter what happened previously. And it's something that certainly I learned in my fire experience that we're going to talk about is sometimes life just hands you a reboot, and you can look at it as the end of something or as the beginning of something. And the truth is it's both. So I love this idea of every day is a new birth in the sense of, we are still here. We get a new chance to start over.
Yes. Awesome. I love it. Great response, Sandra. Thanks so much for sharing that. And let's dive into more about who you are and what you're working on today. And then after we dive into that a little bit, we'll go back to your journey, and you could take us back to some of the things like the fire and how you got through that, how you got that resilience, developed that, or experienced that, grew that muscle, so to speak. So let's dive into today, Sandra. What are you working on today?
I am working on a bunch of stuff today.
Awesome.
I did write The Fire Outside My Window, which is the definitive account of California's epic Cedar fire 15 years ago now, and still timely, still a benchmark to what we've seen today. And that came out 5 years ago on the 10-year anniversary of the fire. But today I'm working on getting it made into a movie.
Ooh.
So many of you movie producers out there, or script writers, or whomever, maybe listening in the movie industry, I have a Can't Put It Down thriller for you. So I'm working really hard on that with a movie coach. I am doing a lot of speaking, doing keynotes and workshops on the ComeBACK formula that we're going to talk about. So I'm spreading that message not only to disaster survivors and emergency managers, but to other organizations and corporate and community groups, how we can build our resilience like a muscle, and it's applicable to everything, not just natural disaster. So I'm working pretty hard on that as well. And I've just released a Creative Commons license on my ComeBACK formula guidebook that I'm distributing now as complimentary copies online for anyone in disaster zones. So we're pushing that out right now to our friends in Hawaii, who have, of course, been inundated by lava over the last month. So those are the main things I'm working on.
Wow. So awesome. And I love how you're just taking what you learned in your past, in your journey, in your story, and applying it and teaching it to people and sharing it. You found the message in the mess, as they say, and you were able to really move forward with that and show up. And I just think it's so inspiring that you did that you took something that was that could have beat people down and just had them want to give up on life, and even some people do, and you took that and you ran with it and you propelled yourself forward to be able to help so many more people, and really acknowledge you for that, Sandra.
Thank you. And that's what I hope that's the message I'm really hoping to share with other people, is that disaster can become an opportunity, and loss, you can even leverage a loss into a legacy. I gotta love the alliteration.
Yes.
You can even leverage a loss into a legacy, which is what many of the people we most admire in this world have done. Many of them have been through incredible adversity, hardship, tragedy, and have used that that could have brought them down forever and could have left them trapped in this quicksand of victim mentality. And instead, they flipped that around and made it a springboard to share what they learned with other people and help other people. So I follow in those footsteps of the greats out there and try to inspire others to come along for the journey.
Yes. Awesome, Sandra. So you're inspirational already. Check.
Yeah.
You're doing awesome. So let's take our audience back to those challenging moments where you had to become someone more of who you already are and become greater to be able to handle that, to expand your capacity, because life tests, I don't know if life tests us, but there are challenges that are put in our path that we have to overcome, that we have to grow through, and you had some serious challenges. So tell our audience about those.
Yeah, that's so true. And my challenge began about 15 years ago now. And my husband and I had reached a new chapter in our lives. Our kids were launched, and we didn't have to live in the suburbs anymore for school districts and such. And we thought, well, let's branch out. We were living in San Diego, and we found, we decided to move to the country. And we found this beautiful house on the side of a mountain overlooking a canyon. We can see all the way to Mexico, Chris. Wow. Just this beautiful place. And we thought it was so special that it needed its own name. So we called it Terra Nova, which means our new land. And we thought, well, that's fitting for this new chapter in our lives. And we just loved it because we were out there with nature. You know, we had rabbits and roadrunners and coyotes running around every now and then. A rattlesnake we had to deal with, which is where I insert my plug for snakeboots.com, which it's an all-purpose shop for snake country. Anyway, I know what I wanted to tell you is one day on my way to work, I even saw a bobcat just running down the road. And I thought, this is amazing, because this canyon we lived in was called Wildcat Canyon. And here was a real wildcat. So come on. Yeah. How much more amazing a place. Wow. So what I discovered was 7 months later, the downside of living so close to nature and what we call the wildland urban interface, because 7 months later, we woke up, my husband and I, in the middle of the night to the sight of fire outside our window, across the canyon on the mountain across from us, and this glow deep down below that told us that we had flames leaping upslope. So we knew we had no time. We grabbed our animals. We had these two big, shaggy Newfoundland dogs, think black St. Bernards. We had a little cockatiel named Chelsea, and we shoved her into a traveling cage, and we jumped into the closest car, which happened to be my little Acura Sport Coupe. It could not have been Bob's giant Suburban, because we couldn't find the keys to that.
Oh no.
There's a note to self, right?
Wow.
Do you know where your car keys are when you go to bed every night? So we were lucky that we had some, but that meant I was driving. And as we backed out, there's this swirl of embers, tornadoes of red embers, and this big wall of light and flames just enveloping our beautiful new Terra Nova.
Wow.
So we had to run for our lives, Chris, and there was only one way out. And it was down a steep, narrow sliver of asphalt cut into the side of the mountain. And just as I got to the most treacherous part of this road, we hit the smoke, and suddenly I couldn't see anything. And I started screaming, I can't see the road. And my husband yelled back, well, just don't wreck the car, which meant, please don't drive off the road.
Right.
So just at this moment, are you ready for the miracle in the story?
Yes.
The bobcat jumps to my headlight. This bobcat jumped out of the brush into the road right in front of me and dashed off into the smoke. And somehow I knew that the cat was on the road I couldn't see.
Wow.
And somehow I knew to follow it. So I followed this bobcat, and that is how we made our way through this fire, negotiating between these two lines of fire, and punched out about a mile later. It was the Cedar fire, which for 14 years was the biggest in California history, took over 2,000 homes and killed 15 people, including 12 of our neighbors. Wow. So that's where the story began.
Wow.
It gives a new meaning to the term burn it up, Chris.
It does. It does.
Doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So, how did you know, like, how much time you had or didn't have, and your desire to, like, get out as fast as possible? Like, what was your gauge on that, and how long that you had?
Well, we knew we should have already been gone, right? I mean, when fire is outside your window, you shouldn't even be there. So we just knew we had no time. And it was interesting because I talk in my book about this, how as soon as we realized the fire was not just across from us, but on our side, right, which, even being across from us was dangerous. Right. Some sort of internal switch went off. And we realized that we just had no time. And what happened was, I think this is just our fight or flight, survival mechanism that kicked in, but we could both feel it. We talked about it later, and we sort of quit thinking so much as just doing. And I remember looking at a silver bracelet on my dresser thinking, I want to take that, but I don't have time. And there were certain things we knew we didn't have time for. And there was some sort of force that was just moving us step by step towards escape, just kept us going. So we had no warning on the evacuation. And so I tell people in disaster-prone areas, don't wait for someone to show up in uniform at your door with an engraved invitation to evacuate. You've just got to listen to your gut and go, because they may not be able to get out ahead of whatever the issue is to warn you. And so we basically had no time. That's why we ended up driving through fire.
So you get out of this fire and you get to safety. What was the process of how you moved forward, and why? Like, what was going through your mind as you moved forward, as you chose to move forward? Did you start off in victim mode and then you transferred to, I'm going to figure out how to make the most out of this, or what was that process like?
I think it varied among people. That's what I discovered when I started doing interviews for my book. Some people did start off in victim mode. For me, for Bob, we never could relate to that. And it's funny, when something like that happens, the very next day, everybody suddenly is calling you a victim. And you're thinking, what? I've never been a victim before. What's this all about? In our case, it just didn't stick. So the media is referring to as fire victims. People were introducing me as she's a fire victim. And I just recoiled because, victim is a very disempowering term. Think about it. It implies that you've been conquered And we didn't feel that way. Chris, we survived.
Right.
And again, 12 of our neighbors right around us who were doing the same things we were doing at the same time did not survive.
Wow.
So we could never think of ourselves as victims. And in fact, I had sort of a militant response when people called me that. I felt it was really important that they understand. I didn't see myself as a victim. I saw myself as someone coming back. So I say, you can be a victim if you want to be. You can choose your story here, or you can be a survivor. And survivors have this sneaky way of turning into thrivers and then givers because they start sharing what they know.
Wow.
And then even changers, these world changers that I've already alluded to, people like Malala and the Dalai Lama and even Steve Jobs, who had his own disaster moments in life. That comes from this whole journey I like to think of as the comeback journey, which starts with people at least thinking you're a victim. You're looking like a victim, whether you feel like it or not. And sometimes you might, but that does not have to be where the story ends.
And what inspired you to start interviewing these people?
Because I was a journalist and had been all my life. And I knew that I was the storyteller who had come out of the worst part of the worst fire that anyone at that time could remember. And I just felt that it was my job. It was almost a feeling of a sacred responsibility to capture that story so that horrific incident wouldn't be forgotten, and that my neighbors who lost their lives and were not going to be able to tell their own stories would not be forgotten. So I felt early on that that was my job. And also, professionally, I thought I'm never going to have a better story dropped in my lap, and if I did, I might not survive the next one, right? This one was too close. Right. So I decided early on that I needed to tell this story. I needed to write a book about it. Wow. Just didn't know it was going to take me 10 years to get the book out. So there was that.
So you got the book out, and then it was more time to get to the comeback formula, right? What was that process of evolution?
Well, actually, that happened. That happened at the same time, or it happened simultaneously, because it was while I was conducting all these research interviews. I did over 100 that I realized some people are seeing themselves as victims, although most weren't. Most were like us, like, we're going to come back. We're going to be okay. We're going to reboot and rebuild. But what was really interesting to me, Chris, was that it didn't seem to matter how much or how little people had lost in the fire as to which label they identified with. In fact, some of the people who had lost the least seemed to be the most bitter. And some of the people who had lost loved ones in the fire were saying to me, we're coming back. Our loved ones would not want us to spend the rest of our lives being sad and bitter and angry. And one mother who had lost her 16-year-old daughter said to me, the fire has already taken enough, and we're not going to give it anymore. We're not going to give it our future. We're not going to give it our joy. Right. And yet a man who had lost his garage in the fire, his house was fine, his animals, his family, all safe. He was the most bitter person I met. So that's when I learned that it's a choice. We may not be able to choose what happened to us, but we can choose what our story is going to be going forward. We can choose our response, right?
Wow, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I love that distinction that really it's the people who are they're unconscious to the fact that they're being a victim, that they've slapped that on.
Sometimes they are, unconscious about it.
I think a lot of times, because I mean, it's like, if you know better, you do better. And
I love that saying.
Right. And if people knew that being a victim would simply perpetuate their victim results and lifestyle, I don't think they would choose it. But I totally get that once they have been educated and they still start choosing it, then it's like, okay, well, we gave you a shot. You don't want to choose. You don't want to step up. That's you being unconscious about, being unconscious.
Right. That's true. Unconsciousness.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us more about the comeback formula and what it means and what difference it can make for people when they start implementing it.
Well, what it means is that we do get a choice, and that we are, even though we are by nature resilient, we can also build that innate resilience like a muscle, which I didn't realize before. So what I did was I found this element of choice sent me to Viktor Frankl. And I don't know if you're familiar with Viktor Frankl and his work. You're nodding your head. Yes.
Yep.
So Viktor Frankl, for our listeners, well, I don't know, maybe you want to tell our listeners who Viktor Frankl was.
I know he wrote about the Holocaust, and I can't remember the book title, but he wrote about it in a way that had people be able to experience it in like a positive manner, how there were stories of perseverance and resilience and, you know, getting through it in spite of all the tremendous hardship. But I would love to hear your take on it as well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist in Austria, and his family was caught up in the Holocaust. He lost his entire family. They did not survive except for him, and he was imprisoned in some of the worst concentration camps that we have, you know, not that they weren't all terrible, but the really notorious camps, Dachau and Auschwitz, and was just at the brink of dying for years, right? And he came out of that incredible crucible of suffering, more than most of us can even imagine. And he wrote this beautiful book called Man's Search for Meaning. And part of that book was about the phenomenon of choice. So I found a quote from Viktor Frankl shortly after my fire experience where he said that the last of the human freedoms is the freedom to choose one's attitude regardless of the circumstances, to choose one's own way. And I thought, that's pretty amazing. I wonder if there is, because it seemed to apply to me, right? It resonated with me, and it made me wonder, even though I couldn't begin to compare my experience to his, if there might be some other commonalities, if there might be some common steps in coming back from adversity that were true no matter what the inciting incident, right? No matter what your disaster was. And I did a little research. And again, this is as I'm researching my book, because my book took a while to research. And I was also doing this research, and I found that it was true that in the field of positive psychology, which I know you're familiar with, there are all of these great empirical studies that actually prove that we can build our resilience like a muscle. And I looked at all of these different ways we could do that, and I boiled them down into 5 practices that have been proven now by experience, including mine, and by empirical study, to build resilience so that we can transform our disasters into opportunities and even our loss into legacy, as we said earlier.
Beautiful. Awesome. Can we get into these 5 steps? This juicy gold.
I know. So again, there are many things we can do, and I have created these buckets, I think of them, that cover everything. So the first of these 5 steps, I call this the ComeBACK formula. The ComeBACK formula starts with the word come. So the first of these steps is to come to a place of gratitude. So what these studies show us is that gratitude is an antidote for almost any negative emotion, right?
Yep.
I know you must realize this, right?
I love hearing it from your side of the story. Yeah. It's perfect. So
lots of studies on this, but yeah, we know that even if we can find only one little thing to be thankful for in the midst of chaos and calamity and a world of hurt, it will begin to lift us out of what I think of quicksand, of just getting stuck in that victim mentality, right? And it will begin to lift us out of that towards healing and growth. That's where gratitude comes in. So I make it a practice. My meditative practice is really gratitude. And especially when I'm concerned or anxious or fearful or upset, I just start like the old hymn said, count your blessings, right? Count them one by one. If I just start thinking about what I have to be grateful for right here in this moment, it gives me the perspective I need to sort of jar me out of that victimness. I mean, victimness can happen anytime, which I didn't realize for a long time until once someone was pretty awful to me, hurt my feelings, and I just carried this grudge for a long time because he didn't apologize. I knew he wasn't going to. I felt like other people should feel sorrier for me than they did. And finally, Chris, I realized I am being a victim of this slight. I am the only one who's carrying this. And I need to just be grateful for what I have now and let that go and not be a victim. So gratitude is the first step. And then the next 4 steps followed the letters BACK, as in come back. So B is 2 things. Be patient with the pain. Because anytime we encounter adversity, it's going to take a while to get over it. Like it took me a year to let go of this grudge against the person who had insulted me, right? But especially when we're encountering something really deep, a really deep loss, as in I lost my home, or a financial reversal, or a frightening diagnosis, or a relationship breakup, any of those things. Just like when we have surgery, deep wounds don't heal overnight, but they can heal. So know that this painful part is doing its work in you. And our job is to be patient and let that work happen. We can't shortcut that part. It's going to be painful. At the same time, though, the other part of B is to believe in your own ability to come back, because we are resilient by nature, and we can build our resilience like a muscle with these practices. So that's the B.
Beautiful. So that was be patient with the pain and believe in your own ability to come back.
Believe that we are resilient by nature. Resilience is in our DNA. And then the A, this is the tough one. A is accept help and be tough enough to ask for it when we need it. You're nodding. Like, that's a tough one, right?
It is.
It is, because none of us want to admit that we need help. It just feels weak, right? Yeah. So a lot of times people are trying to help us with our challenges, and we're saying, no, we're good. And I know in my situation, I didn't want to be anybody's charity case, and people were bringing me clothes and furniture and checks and recipes, like I cook, which I don't, but people were just bringing from their abundance to share with us out of the goodness of their hearts. And I was embarrassed. And a friend had to take me aside and say, Sandra, your job right now is to be a grateful recipient. If you want to still give to someone else, because I was used to being the giver, right? I was used to writing the checks to charities and taking old clothes to Goodwill. She said, if you still want to be a giver, give these people the chance to help you out, because it feels good when we can do something. So don't deny them that gift. So sometimes we don't want to accept the help that's offered to us. And sometimes we don't want to ask for help when we need it. Especially, for example, if it's professional help. Bob and I immediately went out and got some professional counseling because we figured, we just drove through fire. We almost died. Our neighbors did. We lost our home. We have been through something traumatic here, and we don't know what the way back from this is supposed to look like. So maybe we should have somebody monitor our journey and make sure we don't get stuck somewhere. I mean, we did not want to fall off the side of that mountain any more than we'd wanted to fall off the side of the actual mountain. So we did. We went and talked with a counselor for a few months until he explained what PTSD was like. He explained our reactions. He just kept us actually in the knowledge that we were on track and we were healing as we should. And then after a few months, he said, you're fine, get out of here. Here's the deal. I don't know anybody else who did that, Chris. And I've talked with hundreds of people. Most people do not seek out help. And most people, if they do want to seek it out, aren't really sure where to find it, which is why I have created that ComeBACK formula guidebook that I'm now giving to the world, so that we have all of these tools for emotional recovery in one place, because we didn't 15 years ago. So another piece of this asking for help is, of course, it speaks to community and connection, really important to not isolate yourself, to be with people who support you. It speaks to prayer and asking for divine help, whatever that is like to you. And remembering that sometimes when we ask for divine assistance and we are turning away people's attempts to help us, we may be turning away the answer to what we've been praying for, because sometimes prayers are answered through people, right? Yes. So that's another phenomenon I see.
Wow.
Another part of this asking for help, and why I say be tough enough to ask when we need it, is it's hard, especially for men. It's hard, especially for our emergency responders, because how do you call 911 when you are 911, right? They're not used to that. So what I tell them then is, I tell them, well, the public sees you as heroes, and you are, and here's what we know about heroes. And I tell them about the hero's journey. You must know about the hero's journey, I'm sure. Joseph Campbell. And I remind them that a part of the hero's journey is to accept help from a guide or mentor. And I show them slides when I do a lot of workshops and presentations for emergency responders and emergency management conferences. And I show them these slides of Luke and Obi-Wan and Harry and Dumbledore and Katniss and Haymitch and even Dorothy and Glinda, the Good Witch. And these are all heroes' journeys where this everyday person is called out of their village to take on some incredible quest, almost kills them, but with the help of their mentor or guide, they return to their village triumphant. So that is the part about accepting help and asking when we need it. That's the A. You want to go on to the C?
Yes, this is awesome.
Okay.
I love
I just
this.
want to give you a chance to talk. Okay.
Yes.
So the C we've actually already talked about. The C is Viktor Frankl's lesson to us, which is to choose your response. I like to say, because I'm a storyteller, choose your story. You can be the victim in a victim story if you want to be. I saw that happen to people. That was their choice. Some of these people I talked to 10 years later, they were still living in that mentality. It had become a way of life, and it looked like a pretty miserable way of life. Or you can be a survivor, and you can live the survivor story. And the survivor, again, becomes a thriver and a giver and often a changer who leverages their tragedy into a blessing for other people. So that's the C, the element of choice. And the K finally is to keep moving forward. And what I'm talking about here is the fact that we can't get the past back, no matter how much we wish we could, right? I could not have my same house back. I could not have my kids' pre-digital kid photos back, the little things they made me in school when they were little. I couldn't get that back. So you have to keep moving forward instead of spending time wishing for something that isn't going to be possible. And it's a gradual detachment, because we have to grieve over our losses, whether they're material or whether it's the loss of a loved one in the worst possible tragedy, loss. So when we continue to look forward, when we embrace the possibilities of the new future, we have all these great new opportunities open up that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. Opportunities for ourselves, opportunities to help others. A really important part of this is forgiveness, because we have to let go and forgive those people who may have had something to do with our loss, or at least people we think may have had something to do with our loss. And sometimes we have to forgive ourselves as well for whatever part we may have or feel we played in it. So that is the total ComeBACK formula. What do you think?
I love how you said forgiveness, because that seems such a, I've heard it multiple times with people, and I'm starting to recognize how it comes up a lot more with people who've experienced a lot more hardship. I mean, just about everyone who comes on here has a challenging story, something that they've gone through.
Yeah.
But I really hear when forgiveness is present that they've like let go of that, of the suffering around it, and chosen to really step into their power, into their light. So I love that. And then the formula as a whole, you know, I sense that someone can wake up every day or go to this formula every day and look at it and be like, okay, where am I at? How am I doing on every area, on every step, on every checkpoint?
Right.
Am I thriving in this area of accepting help? Maybe not. You know, so it's like, it's a really just black and white of where am I at, or 0 to 10, you know, scale of 0 to 10, where am I at right now on this scale? And it's really objective that we can say, okay, well, where am I at on this scale? And then start moving ourselves forward with that to become our greatest possible self and get through whatever we're dealing with.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I like about it too, that we discovered a lot of these principles along the way. We just kind of stumbled into them, but I just wish that I had had the succinct summary. Again, it's not rocket science. It's not therapy. I'm not a mental health professional, but it is a very short list of things we can do to help ourselves recover emotionally. So yeah, that is, a great part of this is that it is a very few steps that we can focus on and come back to.
What do you think people's biggest resistance is to using the formula to create a comeback momentum and those comeback results in their life?
The resistance to it?
Yeah.
I think, wow, that's a great question, Chris. Let me see. Certainly the resistance to asking for help is the big part of it that I see. I think it would have been much easier for a lot of other people in our incident to have come back had they had more support, including professional support. Right. That's part of the resistance. There is a temptation to think of yourself as a victim because you may be in a world of hurt, and it sure feels like you're a victim for a while. So I think there may be a resistance to see the possibilities of transforming this setback into a comeback.
What I hear is there's a comfortability with suffering, with being entitled, with being that victim. It's like once someone says, this is what's happened, this is how it is, that's their story, they're comfortable repeating their story over and over and over again, or at least the level of uncomfortability that it would take to change their story or look from a different perspective or say that they were, I don't want to say wrong, but you know, it's like kind of the ego, how the ego wants to protect itself, wants to be right. If their story changes, if they look at things from a new perspective, then they might look at it like, I've been suffering all this time and I didn't need to, so I must be right. This has to have been necessary for me to get through this. Otherwise, you know, why would I deal with this much suffering? So I love that, you know, if it's simply chosen, if people choose to use this formula and not hold on to that BS, the belief system of being a victim, they can have a whole new reality.
That's true. And that is a temptation, right? To get attention, to get sympathy. That's what I wanted when I was insulted, you know, is why aren't people feeling more sorry for me? I mean, why are they just letting it go? Why are they not holding this grudge with me, right? It's very tempting when you feel that you've been wronged by people or by life to hold on to that. And you're right. You're exactly right. If we do hold on to that, we miss out on all of the goodies that are in this new reality. I mean, life was never meant to be smooth. This is what life is. It's ups and downs. I like to think of it as it's a wave, like it's a cycle. It's like anything else. And if you look at that cycle that up and down, it's everywhere. Mm-hmm. It's a mountain range. It's a sound wave. It's a light wave. It's music. It's a heartbeat. It's the signature of the universe. When everything is flat and even, that's death.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That is the flat line. That's death. So I think that part of our purpose here is to learn from these ups and downs and to share what we learn with other people, and never expect not to have trials and challenges in life, because that would be kind of a boring life, actually, right?
Yes. And because you're teaching people how to engage their resilience muscle and educating them that they have one, and that it can be grown, and they can be more determined and focused and get through bigger and bigger challenges, that's really relevant. I see that being relevant for decades and centuries, like that is such a critical component of human existence, to be able to handle, like you said, the universe in its natural state is up and down, is
right.
Ebbs and flows, blacks and whites. It's all mixing together. So how do you see the evolution of people's resilience moving forward? How do you see your work evolving and making the difference in people's lives moving forward?
Well, two things just to add to what you said.
Sure.
Even though this idea of choice was perhaps kind of, at least in a simple statement, new to me at age 50, it wasn't new to people who had been around much earlier, including a lot of the Stoic philosophers from 2,000 years ago. So to your comment about this is a wisdom for the ages, yes, it is. It's wisdom for the ages. And we see it again in all the hero's journeys, which Joseph Campbell found out, where the hero's journey was the essential story structure at the base of every great legend from all time, from all cultures. So it's fundamental stuff. Of course, it will wear into the future because it's been with us all this time, and it is part of us. It is who we are at our core. We come back with it's that survival instinct, right? Nuanced and fleshed out. So how will my work go forward? Well, who knows? But here's how I would love for it to go forward. I would love to reinvent disaster recovery so that the new disaster survivors coming into this club that none of us wanted to join will have this succinct summary of just 5 things that we can touch on. And, I have people in my workshops, I just have them fill out an index card. And as we go through each one, I have them just number them 1 through 5. And then we take some time to write a few gratitude points on the back. What are you grateful for? And then I tell them, now fold that in half and tuck it in your wallet. And you have a high-tech tool to remind you, just a reminder of these 5 things, So I would hope that this can become available routinely after disasters, because it's not out there now, which is why I'm working with people in Hawaii and with some of our recent fire and mudslide zones here in California. Unfortunately, the club of disaster survivors grows day by day, year by year. None of us want to join, none of us expect to join, but there it is. That's my initial audience, and because that's where my story and credibility lie. And also our emergency responders, firefighters, law enforcement, our emergency managers, who are the ones who come in and say, well, here's a real catastrophe. How am I going to manage this? There are people whose jobs it is to manage this stuff as it happens. I speak with them and our disaster workers, not just the Red Cross, but a lot of people's jobs are to put things back together again after disasters. And that is a inherently traumatic job. So I also want to reach out to them. And then, of course, there are, as we've already covered, just universal applications to this. So that is why I am making my guidebook available as a complimentary gift at my website, which is sandrayounger.com. You can go there and you can read the entire guidebook of all these principles we've talked about, plus a little of the science, a few stories, some exercises. That's where I hope my work goes.
Yes, beautiful. And I would say one of the strategic actions that you're most likely already taking is to be contacting the heads of these organizations like Red Cross, like, police departments or whoever. I don't know who's in charge of that stuff, but like to be contacting them, right? And being able to connect with them and say, here's a resource that your whole entire organization should know about. What are you doing that? And what's just kind of stepping into the influencer? You're the influencer who's getting this work out there. Help us see like what you're doing actively to really leverage your message and get it out to more people. And what are some of the challenges in doing that?
Yeah, that has been challenging. I'm working a lot with grassroots people on the ground, because generally after one of these disasters, people spring up from within each community, and that becomes the skeleton of the recovery. The Red Cross is an incredible organization, but they can't stay forever. So they fold up their recovery centers and they move on to the next disaster. A lot of other ad hoc groups come in to a disaster zone and help out. And then they eventually have to leave. So it becomes the people who live there who are the ongoing heart and soul and structure of the recovery effort. And let's remember, these recoveries go on for years. It's 15 years past our own recovery here, and you can still see effects in places. You cannot put these communities back together overnight. So we need something that's long lasting. That is why I like the idea of having this resource out there that people can just refer to on their own for as long as they need it. Because as one person told me, you can rebuild a house in less than 3 years and you can be traumatized by the experience of the disaster for 30 years, which is, or longer, right? So I do work with people as I meet them on the ground. Sometimes people reach out to me because they hear about my book and my resilience work. I also, as I mentioned, do speak with, I speak to emergency management conferences, and that way I get to know a lot of the leaders of the emergency agencies within a community. So I'm reaching out that way. And of course, this is why I do podcasts, Chris, is to let people know that if they have someone they know in a disaster area, or if we hope not, it happens in their community, there is another resource out there that hasn't typically been out there. This is a missing link in disaster recovery. We don't do a good job of dealing with people's emotional recovery. And I always hear of people who lose hope and take their own lives in the aftermath of disaster. And these are the people who initially are survivors, and yet they become victims. So this breaks my heart, of course, and it pushes me to do more. So those are some of the steps I'm taking. I'm also always looking for sponsors, perhaps insurance companies, or energy companies, people who already have a stake in disaster preparedness and recovery, to work with me. It would be great to also, in addition to my online workbook, to have this available in print version for people through the help of sponsorship. So those are some of the steps that I'm taking right now.
It's beautiful. I love it. I love it, Sandra. So I think the next thing for our audience and our listeners to ask is, okay, so now I know about this formula. What's a way that I can remind myself, or I can effectively be able to use it more often? You mentioned something about writing it on a card and putting some numbers. So what else can we do or reiterate that so that we can actively use this formula as well?
Well, the index card is a really just simple thing you can do. And again, the way you do that is you just spend some time thinking about, first of all, what am I grateful for in this moment? What in this moment, in this time and place, am I grateful for? And it can be something simple, like the sun is shining in my window right now. It's a gorgeous day outside. I can see a mountain. It's, I'm talking with you about this incredible stuff, and I'm getting to enjoy your energy. It could be things like that. It could be the biggies, like I'm grateful for my family and my friends and my job and my health. And but I always advise people, if they're hung up at that conceptual level of job, health, family, to ask themselves, why am I grateful for that? To just keep asking why. Why is that important? Why am I grateful? Until they get to a point where they feel a little bit verklempt. When they can feel that emotion kicking in, then you know that you are really into true gratitude. So just write a couple of those things down on one side of the card. On the other side of the card, number it 1 through 5. Write down these principles, these practices we've talked about. And again, you can find the whole shebang at my website, sandrayounger.com. Just scroll down a bit and then fold that little piece of paper in half and tuck it away somewhere where you'll have it with you. So those are my best ideas so far. Awesome. I want to leave room for evolving. But that little piece of paper in your pocket is kind of a reminder. Mine is right in there next to my Costco card. And to get this workbook that I just released, this is the first time I've really had a chance to talk about it, Chris. So this is a debut of the entire guidebook in a complimentary online form that everybody can access. And that's where they can find my whole list of exercises that they can do to implement. Does that help?
Yes, it did. It did,
yeah.
And it does. And so we're beginning to wrap up, and let's just reiterate how people get the most value with you. They get to continue their journey with you, how they can stay connected with you, how they can contact with you. Let's give them those next steps that they can take with you, Sandra.
Okay, well, I've already stuck my website URL in there a couple of times, sandrayounger.com. And it's spelled just like it sounds. It's sandrayounger.com. And if you scroll down a couple panels there, it's all one big page. You can find the ComeBACK Formula guidebook that you can have full access to. You can also read a little bit more about what I do, and you can contact me if you're looking for speakers or workshop leaders who can share with your audience how to build resilience like a muscle so that we can transform disaster into opportunity and even loss into legacy.
Amazing. Awesome. Sandra, you are stellar. Thank you for the work that you're doing in the world and providing this support to people who were once victims and are becoming the victors and their greatest possible selves. Thank you so much for what you do in the world. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for everything you're doing and for the opportunity to share with your audience. Thanks.
Absolutely. Everyone take action. Go to Sandra's website, sandrayounger.com, and definitely stay connected with her. She is doing some big, big things. So Sandra, we will see you very soon, and have the best day ever, okay?
Yes, you too, Chris. Bye-bye.
Take care.